Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast and welcome to season 5. Joe, does it really feel like we're on to the 5th freaking year we've been doing this already?
Yes and no. It's certainly. I mean, we've looked at each other's faces enough in the last 5 years. That's for sure. But
Hell,
yeah, I
hell,
don't know. Sometimes it's flown by and sometimes it hasn't. So
I mean, hell, in our case, it's been way longer than 5 years, but still.
yeah.
So Jason's having computer issues tonight. He's going to be popping comments on throughout. And Ron is away tonight. I know he was sick last week. We were trying to get on last week, and things just didn't work out, and that's okay. It's the off season. Not much has happened, even though we actually had a little bit of movement last week. And I would still call this, as usual, a relatively quiet off season because baseball just has to spread it out instead of trying to hammer out all the free agency in like 4 days like other sports do to make it exciting. Why would we want to do that? So before we get into it, Joe, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, in light of the Cubs' intelligent spending mantra, I am doing an intelligent calorie intake tonight and drinking Diet Mountain Dew. So
All right. I am not drinking intelligently tonight. I am enjoying from New Trail the chocolate strawberry ice cream stout. It's quite good. It's not too sweet like you think it would be, although probably people that don't like stouts would think it's way too sweet. So screw them. It tastes better than the hop water of the 4 gazillion IPA varieties that are out there in the market right now, which all taste pretty much the same, like hops, and nothing but more hops. So let's hop into it tonight. Before we hit the lead, I just want to share a video after Bob Uecker passed. One of his best known on movie scenes here. Give me a second. Let me pull this up here.
Vaughn, a juvenile delinquent in the offseason in his major league debut.
I'm gonna light your ass up, meat.
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed. Ball 4. Ball 8. Low, and Vaughn has walked the bases loaded on 12 straight pitches. Boy, how can these guys lay off pitches that close? Vaughn, a juvenile delinquent in the offseason.
Bob Uecker, rest in peace, man. One of the great broadcasters of all time. So funny to listen to. He was one when Atlanta was playing games in Milwaukee. I would honestly turn on the broadcast to listen to Uecker. He just had such a great feel for the flow of the game. Crack a joke at any point. It didn't matter who was on with him. Such a great announcer. He's going to be missed. Hell of a man. Hall of Famer. Rest in peace, Mr. Uecker. And let's be real, Joe. It's the only good thing about Chicago North. All right, let's roll into the Hall of Fame. The results, they are in. We have three players in this year. Ichiro Suzuki, hence me wearing the Mariners jersey tonight, wearing my Ichiro jersey that my parents got me years ago when they went out there. Also, CC Sabathia got in on his first ballot, and on his 10th and final ballot, and thank God for this, Billy Wagner is in. I would have been real ticked off if Wags had made it in on this last one because he is one of the best relievers I've ever watched. So, Joe Ichiro, first Asian-born player to be selected. He was one shy of becoming the first position player to be unanimously selected. Who the one voter was that didn't vote for Ichiro, I'd really love to have your head examined for CTE via MRI because you're an idiot. The guy had a career .311 average. He stole 509 bases over 14 seasons, 10-time All-Star and Gold Glove winner. He was a 3-time Silver Slugger winner. He didn't even debut till he was 27, almost 28 years old, 27 years, 162 days old. First Japanese-born position player. He got the Rookie of the Year and the MVP his rookie year. He's only the second player to ever do that, along with Fred Lynn of the 75 Red Sox. And he had 10 straight seasons of 200-plus hits, and 7 of those 10, he topped MLB in hits. Who doesn't vote for that? What the hell?
I don't know. And it's, you mentioned how old he was when he debuted. I mean, to do all of that after playing for so long in Japan, I mean, that's just crazy. But I will say this. I think, Ichiro handled it really nicely. Offered to get together with the person who didn't vote for him, whoever that person is. and have some tea or have a drink or whatever, and handled it with class and grace. And I think look, I mean, people are going to vote the way they're going to vote when it comes to the Hall of Fame, and I mean, this probably was the closest thing you had to a lock since Mariano. So I mean, I guess I can see it, maybe because he only played so long over here. I don't know, but glad to see he's in, and he was such a fun player to watch when we were kids, to be sure. So,
oh my God, I always that was a swing that even though I knew I could never emulate, I always tried. Him, Sheffield, Chipper, everybody had their even Sammy, dude. I tried to do Sammy swing a couple times. Boy, that looked idiotic and failed horribly, but I still did it. So I really glad though to see Ichiro. He should have been unanimous, but hey, whatever. Sabathia went in at 86.8%. First pitcher to go since Mariano. First pitcher to go first ballot since Mariano and Doc Halladay back in 2019. Yes, this is where we're going to start to see the pitchers with lower win totals and lower innings start to get in. He only had 251 wins, 3,577 and a third innings, but he was a workhorse. I mean, over his career, like if you look at all the pitchers that pitched over his career, nobody comes close to the number of innings he threw. His career ERA plus was 116, so he was 16% better than league average for his career. His 61.8 B-WAR is 10th in MLB history among lefties. He's one of only 15 pitchers and one of 3 southpaws with 3,000 strikeouts and 250 wins. And he's tied with Bob Gibson for second most wins among black pitchers. They trail Ferguson Jenkins at 284. Not bad company to be in at all. Let's be real. One thing I always remember with CC, he was a team first guy. I remember his last season with the Yankees when he missed the innings pitched bonus because his guy got hit. So he went out and promptly hit the next guy up from the other team, got ejected and missed it by like an inning or an inning and a third. So such a tiny margin. I think if I remember right, the Yankees said, yeah, we're going to give you the bonus anyway, because it's stupid to quibble over a third of an inning or do stupid shit like the Marlins did, cutting a guy so he wouldn't qualify for his bonus like they did this past year at the end. So, CC was always a guy you felt good about if he was on your team. And since he was never on my team, I hated facing him because he probably beat us way more often than we ever beat him.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like you said, you're going to see a lot lower win totals now with pitchers moving forward who get in. I don't know that he necessarily gets in first ballot if he didn't play in New York. I think that certainly had a factor to it.
You got to consider his postseason numbers with New York too. They were unbelievable.
Right. So I mean, if he doesn't play in New York, I don't think, and have those postseason appearances, I think it'd have been a lot harder to see him get in on the first ballot.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I really thought he was going to be second, third ballot. I was a little surprised to see him go first.
Yeah. And it's really hard because, I mean, even innings is not going to be a good metric in a couple of years now because pitchers don't throw that long anymore.
No,
so I mean, you're going to start to see, I think, in the next 10 years, 5-10 years, a shift in what counts as being Hall of Fame worthy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if it's, part of me feels it's watered down a little bit, and part of me kind of understands that it's just evolving with the different, mentality in the game today. So
yeah, the game's going to evolve, and you need the game to evolve because stagnancy is bad. Now, you don't need to make crazy changes every year, Rob Manfred, with rule changes, but you do need to have continuous forward progress. And then our third pitcher to get in, Billy Wagner, very comfortably at 82.5%. The ninth closer to be elected to the Hall of Fame. 100-mile-an-hour fastball, a slider that was one of the sharpest you'll ever see. Is the highest strikeout rate at 33.2% of any pitcher in history who threw at least 900 innings. Using that minimum as well, he has the lowest opponent against average at .186. And his ERA was at 2.31 and his whip was .998, which are the best for a southpaw in the live ball era. The personal story behind Wagner is awesome. He broke his right arm, so he learned to throw left-handed, learned that he could throw harder left-handed, so he kept at it. Played at Division III Ferrum College, was a starter originally, but they moved him over to the bullpen in the big leagues. In 16 seasons, he had 422 saves, 1,196 strikeouts, and only 903 innings. That's wild. With the Astros alone, he had 225 saves. That's a franchise record. He was a 7-time All-Star. It was a long road to get him into the Hall. He retired in 2010 after his final season with the Braves, which surprisingly he put up the lowest ERA in his career at 143. And I don't remember him hitting 100, but he was still pumping 97, 98. Lowest career innings total among the Hall of Fame relievers. And let's remember too, Joe, Mariano Rivera and Trevor Hoffman hit the ballot during his time on the ballot, and their 600 saves did make it harder to get in, understandably. I'm just glad he finally got in. I think it was absolutely ridiculous that it took 10 years to get one of the most dominant arms we have ever seen into the Hall of Fame. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand, taking this long to get there. I think that I think the other thing you have to consider is having to wait 5 years for all the steroid era guys to get off who were not going to get in, and we knew they weren't going to get in.
Yeah.
So kind of wasting some votes there, which is kind of dumb to me. But I think, look, it seems to me as if sometimes they try to restrict just how many players per position they put in sometimes, and that's just stupid. Either they're good or they're not. Like this is kind of dumb. Truthfully, the voting process, the way they handle it, and a generational talent, has to wait till 10 years to get in, which is just nuts.
Well, and not only that, I know the closer, in terms of baseball history, the closer is a relatively new position.
Well, and I think the inning thing with relievers, like.
They're never going to get the chance to pump out 5,000 innings.
Well, no. And Mariano Rivera and Trevor Hoffman, they were guys who did, 5-6 out saves.
And not only that,
Wagner never really
starters
did that.
Too. They were starters originally before they got moved to the pen to close.
Right.
So, whereas Wagner never was put in a starting role as a major leaguer, so he never had that opportunity. But I'm so glad he's in. I hated facing him because it was pretty much always done. Doesn't matter who he was facing, but man, talk about dominance. He was the definition of left-handed dominance. The closest comparison today is probably what Josh Hader, I would think. And Hader's stuff's not close to as sharp as primetime Billy Wagner was. All right, so of the newcomers, so obviously Ichiro and CeCe were in, and then of the other newcomers, almost all of them fell off. Felix Hernandez is still on at 20.6%. Dustin Pedroia is still on at 11.9%. I was a little disappointed that Russell Martin and Brian McCann didn't get enough votes to at least be considered longer, because catchers, you have to look at them through a different lens with their numbers than you do other players, because they don't get as many games played because they need more off days. McCann in particular, I hope he gets strong consideration in a committee down the road. I was not surprised to see the likes of Ben Zobrist and Fernando Rodney get no votes because they should not have even been considered. Sorry, Tampa Bay fans, for Zobrist. I know everybody loves Zobrist's defense and everything. No, Ben Zobrist is not a Hall of Famer, not even close.
Well, I mean, he probably is in there with the Cubs 2016 World Series, but
yeah, probably.
I can see where you're coming from beyond that.
Yeah. I'm glad King Felix is still on there, though. I mean, he's already in with his perfect game, but it'd be nice to see him fully enshrined as well. Hanley Ramirez also, unsurprisingly, had no votes. All right, so the returning members. So Carlos Beltran was the highest. He had the highest vote percentage of those who didn't get in at 70.3%. Andruw Jones was at 66.2%. And then after that, it really fell off. Chase Utley did make a good climb from year one to year two up to 39.8%. Aroyd, Manny, pretty much Andy Pettit, they're pretty much stagnant or dropping slightly. Bobby Abreu's at 19.5 after 6 years. I don't see him picking up enough steam at this point. Jimmy Rollins after 4 years is up to 18%. I could see Rollins making a charge year 8 through 10, maybe, depending on who hops on in the future. Vizquel is toast at 17.8 after 8 years. Burley is at 11.4 after 5. Francisco Rodriguez is lingering at 10.2 after 3 years. I don't see him ever making the run. David Wright did actually gain a few votes this year, up to 8.1%. But David Wright, a hell of a player. He couldn't stay healthy. Hall of really good, not Hall of Fame, but he didn't have the longevity. When he was healthy, he put up amazing numbers. He should absolutely be in Mets Hall of Famer, but I don't see him as an MLB Hall of Famer.
Yeah, they're retiring his number this year, I think.
Good.
Or they're at least putting him in the team Hall of Fame this year, I believe, is what I saw.
Yeah. I know the Mets for years were really picky about you have to be a Hall of Famer with a Mets cap to get your number retired. And they've kind of loosened that since Steve Ballmer took over. And this is a case where David Wright was the heart and soul of that team when he was on there and was their captain and absolutely should have had his number retired. The two guys that are already in via the Classic Era Committee, Dick Allen and Dave Parker. I'm so happy for Jason that Dick Allen finally got in. He should have been in a long time ago.
Yeah, the David Wright retirement is July 19th. His number being retired.
Good. I'm glad the Mets are doing that. I hope they're wearing real uniforms and not the City Connect uniforms that day. Joe, if we had a vote, which obviously we don't, we're not members of the BBWA. My ballot's this: Billy Wagner, Andre Jones, Ichiro, Francisco Rodriguez, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, Carlos Beltran. Beltran, that's a tough one for me because of how embroiled he was in the Astros cheating scandal. CeCe and Dustin Pedroia. Those were my picks for election. What were yours?
Wagner, Ichiro, Andre Jones, Chase Utley. I did have Burley on my list initially, but I don't know that he'd had enough success really to get there.
Yeah.
And I think the other one, Beltran is an interesting case, and I think it's hard to ignore what he did on the field as a player.
Yeah.
And I think what you're seeing with Beltran is the way that they should have handled Pete Rose from the start.
Yeah.
Let him in as a player and keep him out as a manager. It's not that difficult. We can do this.
Yeah, we can.
Like, we can recognize the fact that the one with the most hits in the history of the sport can be in there.
I'm still waiting for them to put him in posthumously now that he's dead.
I just don't understand.
There is no reason to keep that man out anymore. He literally did his punishment for the rest of his life. He's dead now. Put him in. He's the damn hit king.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like I said, Beltran is a good case for this, where you can just be like, look, let's put him in for what he did as a player, and we don't have to whitewash it or ignore what he did as a manager or a coach or what have you.
So, and let's take out the Astros cheating years away from what he did. He's still a Hall of Famer even without those years of accomplishment, I think.
Yeah, I mean, should be, but we'll see what happens.
Jason's ballot was Ichiro, Billy, CeCe, Utley, Rollins, Abreu, Andrew, Francisco, and Beltran. So that was the picks for Jason. Joe, just out of curiosity, I want to compare two outfielders for you. Outfielder number one in his first 10 years put up 58 WAR. He had 1,556 hits, 962 runs, 342 homers, 1,023 RBIs, 133 stolen bases, and had 10 Gold Gloves over that time. The overall slash line was 267, 345, 505. Outfielder number two, 54.8 WAR. He had 1,047 runs, 2,244 hits, 258 doubles, 90 homers, 558 RBIs, 383 stolen bases, a 331, 376, 430 slash line, and also had 10 gold gloves. Which, if any, are you putting in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. Probably both.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I'm still pissed that Andruw Jones isn't in yet, because his first 10 years are very comparable with Ichiro's. And yet, and they both fell off after that first 10 years. Let's be real. Ichiro's last years were not great.
No, and I think I think factoring in the fact that he didn't make his big league in the United States debut until 27 kind of factors into, ignoring those last couple of years, because I mean the man still produced a hell of a lot for between 27 and 38 or whatever it was.
Absolutely. And I'm not taking anything away from what Ichiro did. I'm just pointing out that I'm pointing out there's a lot of hypocrisy here with the voters. If they're going to look at two guys that are largely the same in the first 10 years and then had a drastic fall off after that. And actually Andrew's fall off wasn't as bad as Ichiro's was. He just didn't extend it as long. And
I think you have to consider just how worldwide popular Ichiro was. I know it shouldn't matter, but it kind of does. There's a reason that, some of these guys aren't getting the numbers you think they should get because they didn't, they rubbed a couple riders the wrong way, or they think a certain way, and that gets, destroyed or whatever. So, I mean,
I think Andruw gets penalized too much for his last years in the game when he fell off. I really do. That contract with the Yankees really, I'm sorry, it was with the Dodgers first. Those contracts did not pay out for crap. I mean, that was the only time he had a negative WAR was in 08 with the Dodgers. And he still finished with more WAR than Ichiro did. But
anyway. I get it. I'm not discrediting that the performance by any means.
I'm just salty.
We've seen what some voters consider as more important than others, and quite frankly, a lot of it's just freaking stupid. But that's just me.
I will say this: Andruw should get some help next year. Here are the notable candidates for next year: Cole Hamels, Ryan Braun, Alex Gordon, Shin-Soo Choo, Edwin Encarnacion, Hunter Pence, Matt Kemp, Rick Porcello, Daniel Murphy, Howie Kendrick, Nick Markakis, Matt Wieters.
I don't think there's one on that list that I would vote for right in this minute.
I wouldn't. Cole Hamels might get in after a long stretch, but again, he was more injured than anybody. He's another guy. He should be a Phillies Hall of Famer. He's not an MLB Hall of Famer. And I think even Jason agreed with me when I said that in the group chat, if I recall correctly. Ryan Braun, he's a Reuter. They won't put him in. And Nick Markakis, Hall of really good, Hall of even really great. He's always going to hit 285 plus, even as a 50-year-old with a walker, he'll still hit 285. But he's not a Hall of Famer.
No, I think you'll see some shifting around after this year.
Yeah, and that should help Andruw, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
All righty. Let's move it on to free agency. That's our Hall of Fame talk for this year, and I'm sure we'll be discussing it again later on. It kind of started with a bang with the Braves trade right away after, I think it was the day after or 2 days after the World Series when they decided to salary dump Jorge Soler to the Angels for Griffin Canning, who I believe they cut since. And then we didn't really see a lot for a while, just like little re-signings. Walker got re-signed by the Royals, which good for Walker. He had a hell of a year. That was a great signing by the Royals last year. We saw the professor go to the Angels. I know you were sad to see him go, but it probably a good time for it. The Angels were actually really active early on, and then we started to see the big deals roll in. Dodgers getting Blake Snell, 5 years, $182 million, no opt-outs. There was, of course, deferred money because it's the fucking Dodgers. That's all they do. And then Chapman's going to keep rolling another 1 year deal with the Red Sox, 1 year, 10.75. Joe. It's amazing to me that Chapman still is able to convince teams to keep him on as a closer. His stuff's not what it used to be, but it's still fast enough that he's better than a lot of other options out there.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that's a factor. Look, 100 is still 100.
Yeah, it is.
So
and he has
I mean, it's not 103 like he used to be, or it's not Ben Joyce from Tennessee with that 105, but it's still 100. So I mean, there is still some benefit to that, and there's been a lot of focus on swing and miss stuff in the last couple of years. So
yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised that he keeps convincing people to spend money on him. I'm not shocked that it's a little. I thought he'd sign for a little less than what he did get, but whatever.
Yeah, the market's nuts right now. Speaking of nuts, the A's signed Luis Severino to a franchise record 3 years, $67 million. It's the largest guarantee in franchise history. So first of all, to John Middleton, fuck you. I say that for the city of Oakland because, we can't afford it. This team's not. Yeah, and then you go to Sacramento without a deal done for Las Vegas at that point for the stadium, and you dump money because let's be real, Joe. If I'm a major leaguer and I'm offered a contract to go play for the Athletics, if you're not dumping way over market value, I'm not going to play in a damn minor league field for 3 years. Fuck that. Anyway, so the Mets picked up Clay Holmes, 3 years, 38, opt out after the second year, and they're going to let him try and start. What do you think about Clay Holmes, the former closer of the Yankees, as a starter with the Mets?
I'm not disappointed by it. I think, try him in a different role. They don't really need him as a closer, so long inning or a starter. I think Clay Holmes showed a lot of wear toward the end of the year where the quick inning with trying to throw as hard as you can doesn't necessarily work for him. So I'm interested to see how this works out. I'm not surprised by trying to be a little inventive. I mean, especially after losing Severino, you got to replace him with somebody. And not to say that they're the same caliber by any means, but it's certainly an option.
Yeah, and the Mets don't have great MLB ready starting pitching in the high minors right now, so the signing makes sense to give those guys more time. And then the first of the big mega deals, let's call them, the Giants signing Willy Adames, which pissed me off. I was hoping he was coming to Atlanta. 7 years, $182 million, the largest contract in franchise history for the Giants. That blew out Jason's expectations and was even. I had him around 175, so it flew past what I was expecting. Even Giants are all in, man. They are pushing to go against the juggernaut Dodgers, and I know we haven't gotten to the Dodgers' other big signings yet, but just at that point, I mean, I was impressed the Giants were willing to take that chance. I think Adames is a great sign. I don't even think it's a drastically huge overpay, to be honest, with what he brings to the table. Above average glove and a really good bat.
Yeah, I don't think this is a bad move for them, and they're obviously trying to fill a hole that they desperately needed to fill. They didn't have a lot of pop, and they didn't have the best defense in the NL West, to be sure. So, I mean, this is certainly an upgrade.
Yeah. I'm just give me a second here. Come on, 2024 Giants. Here we go. Yeah, let's remember the shortstop for the Giants last year was Tyler Fitzgerald, who didn't have a horrible year with a 2.8 WAR, but he wasn't great. He was an average hitter, but in 96 games, he still struck out 108 times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not a bad idea to go seeking an upgrade. Nick Ahmed did not do anything for them, who I think was actually the original opening day closer or the original opening day shortstop, if I remember right. So
yeah, I think you're right.
It was a badly needed upgrade for the Giants at a position that was a bit of a hole in the lineup last year. And then the mammoth contract that was Juan Soto, MLB and major sports record, 15 years, $765 million, an opt-out after 5 years. The Mets can void the opt-out by increasing the annual salary in the final 10 years by $4 million, which would take it from 51 to 55 million annually. That would increase the total value to $805 million. Zero deferred money. Fuck you, Dodgers. Zero deferred money. And a $75 million signing bonus. Jesus. Just for the record, by the way, Joe, the Yankees' final offer was competitive with it at 16 years and $760 million. So it wasn't a significant boost by the Mets over the Yankees. But I think the Mets were willing to throw in some other stuff like a free luxury box for his family and some incidental things that pushed it over. Am I the only one who thinks this deal is absolutely batshit crazy?
Not necessarily, but I mean, look, the amount of money that these guys are playing for is just freaking stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, it just boggles my mind. There's all sorts of places that money could go. But they're going to, at the end of the day, the Yankees just they screwed themselves over by not doing opt-outs, by doing some of the little things wrong. Like not letting Soto's family have a box. That's a freaking stupid thing.
Well, so they let their players have boxes. They just make them pay for it. Like Aaron Judge pays for his family's box. And Judge is the captain of the team. I understand the Yankees' point that no one player should be above any other player. I don't disagree with that.
At the end of the day, I think the other thing that plays into this too is that, it's Aaron Judge's team whether you like it or not.
Yeah, it was never going to be one Soto's
So, team. I mean, to me, for him to have a chance to, kind of be the guy or a close second guy basically to Lindor and whoever else is still there, whether Alonso resigns or not. But I don't necessarily think that. I mean, the dollar amount is crazy. What's even crazier is that they'll still have 5 years left on this deal when Bonilla's deal is done, which is even more bonkers than that. The fact that the Bobby Bonilla day still lasts another 10 years is crazy to me. But at the end of the day, it's really hard, honestly, to get into pro sports in general when they're playing for this kind of money. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is stupid money. That's true. Dan, I will loosely acknowledge congratulations to your Eagles. We're getting back to football. I hope Kansas City wipes the Eagles off the field. And I hate saying that because I'm still rooting for the Meteor to wipe out the stadium before the Super Bowl ever happens. Sorry, had to acknowledge that. Yeah, we'll talk about Alonso in a little bit. Here's the thing, though. Like the ridiculous contract that that the Dodgers signed last year with Captain MVP. Let's remember, he's a two-way player. So you're getting value two ways. Whether they let him pitch again or not, it doesn't matter. He is a two-way player. He also makes the Dodgers a more appealing market for other Japanese and Korean players, as we've seen, and we'll see again with the later signings. And the jersey sales for Shohei Ohtani have been through the roof because of that massive market he has created. Juan Soto doesn't create that massive market. I don't think Juan Soto's worth this value. I don't think he's going to be worth this value over the life of the contract compared to Shohei Ohtani in the life of his contract.
I could see where you're going with that. I just don't necessarily think that any of this money makes any sense, truthfully. But
no, you're not wrong. No, you're absolutely not wrong about that in the slightest. The money's stupid, absolutely stupid. But Juan Soto doesn't open up the Dominican Republic marketplace more to the Mets than what it was before.
No, there certainly isn't a growth potential there. I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that if he performs the way we know he can, it's certainly going to be a good story for sure in New York City. Which team is better, and did the
Yeah.
Yankees miss out and all that? But I think more than anything, like Soto is a generational talent as a hitter.
Yeah.
So I mean, we haven't seen a hitter with this good of an eye at the plate probably in a long, long time.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. Maybe Ichiro.
like, maybe Ichiro, Joey Votto obviously didn't swing if it wasn't a strike, but
True.
still the eye for the game, the eye for pitching that he has is just head and shoulders above. So you're almost paying for for that part of it too.
But let's be real, he's going to be a DH before too much longer because his glove in right field is atrocious.
Well, but if you're going to make that argument, let's be honest. If the Dodgers let Ohtani pitch, they're idiots. Number one, and number two, he's just a DH, and he won the MVP as a DH.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either, as you know, from the end of last season, but It is what it is. And I'm going to end it on this thought. That's a hell of a lot of money to spend to be in third place for the next 5 to 10 years. So moving on, the Phillies grabbed Jordan Romano in a very reasonable 1 year, $8.5 million. I believe he's going to be their primary closer going into the year. Eovaldi went to the Rangers, 3 years, 75. He re-signed. I was really hoping he would get loose too, but no. Then the Yankees decided to counter the Mets' stupid money by spending stupid money of their own. Max Fried leaving Atlanta to go to the Yankees, 8 years, $218 million. It's the largest guarantee in baseball history for a left-handed pitcher. That's nuts. I love Max Fried. He's a hell of a pitcher. He can't stay healthy. That's stupid money.
Yeah,
I'm glad we're not paying it.
Yeah, for someone who can't stay healthy enough to complete a season lately. Like you said, great when he's there, but and maybe a new environment is going to be a little different. I think that with Atlanta, I think there's been some struggles here and there with pitching this year, and it wasn't last year, and it wasn't just him. It was
agreed
throughout the rotation. So maybe there was more pressure on him, at least in his own mind, to try to get back quicker than he should have.
Yeah, although if he's worried about pressure in Atlanta, he has no idea what's coming for him in New York.
Well, I just meant more so from a talent, like from a team standpoint. If there's more, like the Yankees have a bit stronger rotation, I think, or at least with some of the younger guys who are kind of unproven yet.
Maybe, we'll see. I don't know, man. Garrett Cole's great. I'm gonna take Chris Sale and Spencer Strider though to match that. So,
yes. I'm not saying Strider's not good, but Strider didn't pitch last year, so you have to kind of.
That's true.
I'm evaluating the way Fried pitched and couldn't stay healthy based on the rotation that they had, not the rotation they should have had.
Yeah. Phillies picked up Max Kepler, 1 year, $10 million. Jason was like, why do we get another backup outfielder? He was not pleased with that signing when it rolled out. Let's see here. Other big ones. Goldschmidt to the Yankees, 1 year, 12.5. So it's official. Rizzo's not going back to the Yankees after that one. Andrew McCutchen's back in Pittsburgh for another year. I'm glad. I don't want to see McCutchen anywhere else until he decides to retire. That is where he belongs. Walker Buehler to the Red Sox, 1 year, 21.05. Walker Buehler was the guy who was really open, would be willing to give the Braves a cheaper prove-it contract, and then the Red Sox decided to drop $21 million. Oh man, I bet all I gotta say for Red Sox fans is I hope he is actually healthy, and what we saw at the end of the World Series is what you get, because if it's not, that's a hell of a sunk cost right there.
Well, I think it's like you said, it's a prove-it deal mostly, and
that's a little heavy for a prove-it deal.
Well, yeah, but I think, being that it's Boston, they're going to spend a little more. They had the down year. They had some cap space come up with not re-signing O'Neal and
Yeah, it's
some
true.
of that. So
The Mets re-signed lefty Sean Manaea, 3 years, 75. That felt like a bit of an overpay to me. I don't feel like Manaea is a $25 million a year guy, maybe 18 to 20, but hey, let the Mets spend their money how they want to. The
I mean,
Dodgers.
I don't think you can overstate how much of a difference maker he was last year for them, especially on the stretch run.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think that certainly factors in here.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. I'm not saying he's a bad pitcher. I just don't think he's worth that much money for a guy that went 12-6, 347 last year. But
Yeah,
that is free agency, though. You're just going to see stupid money being spent all over the place. Let's see here. And then the Dodgers re-signed Teoscar Hernandez, 3 years, $66 million, a club option, $15 million for 2028, $6.5 million buyout. And of course, because it's the Dodgers, we add another $23.5 million deferred with a $23 million signing bonus.
I mean, look, they're the only team that really does this, but I mean, other teams could do it if they really wanted to, and they just aren't willing to.
Other teams do defer money, just not at the level that the Dodgers are at over $1 billion in deferrals right now. And it's not like they're so the deferred money, they still have to immediately put it in escrow. It's not like they have all that free cash right immediately available. It goes into escrow. That way, God forbid that the club would fold. That money is still there for those guys when they retire, and they're to receive their deferral money. So
right.
They're fucking with the luxury tax, plain and simple. The Diamondbacks got Corbin Burns, 6 years, $210 million, and opt out after 26. I was surprised Burns didn't get as much as Fried. I thought Burns was going to beat Fried by 5 to 10 mil, but Fried beat him by 8 mil. I like that deal for Corbin Burns. One, because it means I won't have to face him hardly at all anymore, and two, because that's a great ballpark for Corbin Burns to pitch in.
Yeah, I'd say that's certainly a benefit. I think that, I think down the stretch last year he wasn't as great, and I don't know if that's just the Orioles because they weren't really hitting as great toward the end of the year.
Yeah.
But the run support may not have been there, but toward the end of the year he just wasn't quite as good.
Yeah, my fantasy team noticed. Thanks, Joe. The Dodgers grabbed KBO infielder Ha-Seong Kim, 3 years, $12.5 million. I believe he's going to be heading down to the minors. I don't think he's starting up in the majors. Let's see here. Verlander to the Giants, 1 year, $15 million. Like I said, the Giants they're trying. They're trying. And it's a pitcher-friendly park. So that's the kind of place Justin Verlander needs to be at this point in his career because he's not a 200 guy strikeout guy anymore. Jeff Hoffman, 3 years, $33 million to the Blue Jays, and apparently he was close to deals with both the Orioles and the Braves, but both voided the contract offers after the physical. They saw things in the shoulder that they did not like. The Blue Jays said they're not concerned, so we'll see who ends up being right about that one. The Mets brought Jesse Winker in on a 1-year deal, and then the Dodgers signed the Japanese ace Roki Sasaki. It's essentially a minor league deal. He's not old enough to be signed to a major league deal per the international signing rules with the KBO. So he's 6 years, $6.5 million, which is laughable. And the rich keep getting richer. And then the Dodgers doubled down on that, getting Tanner Scott, 4 years, $72 million, 20 signing bonus, $21 million deferred. Good God. The Dodgers really are trying their best to go 162-0, aren't they?
Well, it's funny you say that because I was looking at MLB.com today, and they had an article on like 7 teams that are, improving in the offseason. And I'm like, and one of them was the Dodgers. And I'm like, the World Series champion improved. Like, they didn't need to improve, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, they were already set to freaking kill it this year, and now they had to get better. The Blue Jays grabbed Anthony Santander, 5 years, $92.5 million. I believe I did see some of that money as deferred as well. I feel like that was a bit of an overpay considering his age. I wasn't wild about that one. Atlanta finally made a signing. They had Jurickson Profar, 3 years, $42 million. I like this one. Slight overpay perhaps compared to the market, and considering he's only really had one really great year and a lot of really bad years, but the metrics, the contact and power metrics support the year he had last year. And you know what? Honestly, even if he's ends up just being a platoon guy with Kelnick, that's not a hateful amount of money for that. I'm okay with it. And we needed an extra outfielder to start the year because Acuna's not going to be ready for opening day.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned his year last year. I think that's what factored into the Santander pay as well.
Yeah.
He had a really good year last year.
He did. I just don't see it being sustainable other than maybe a season or two. But that might be enough for them to entice Vlad to stay too, because you have to look at that with the Blue Jays. They're looking 1 year ahead at, oh shit, we've got to re-sign Vlad because they do not want to see him go anywhere else. He is their franchise guy.
Right.
Trade wise, not relatively quiet trade year. You guys picked up Eli Morgan from the Guardians for prospects. A bigger one I saw was the Royals sending Brady Singer to the Reds for Jonathan India and Joey Weimer. I remember when India won the Rookie of the Year, and we were thinking he was going to be a cornerstone at second base for the Reds for years, but he's been usurped by even younger guys. Back in December, the Guardians sent Andres Jimenez and Nick Sandlin to the Blue Jays for Spencer Horwitz, who then they traded later in the day. And Nick Mitchell, I really like that deal for the Blue Jays. Actually, Jimenez played great second base last year. The Blue Jays are going to be much, much improved this year. Jake Berger was traded to the Rangers for prospects because the Marlins are going to end up fifth this year in the NL East. White Sox and Crochet to the Red Sox for 4 prospects: Kyle Teal, a catcher; outfielder Braden Montgomery; infielder Chase Medroth; right-handed pitcher Winkleman Gonzalez. Wow. I think I got that one right. The Red Sox got Garrett Crochet and did not have to give up a top 3. I feel like that's a big win for the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, look, Crochet has said some things and done some things that made him a little less appetizing, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that this really is a net win for both clubs.
Yeah.
The White Sox needed some pieces because they've just got to develop and get better. And they can't do that without pieces. So
yeah,
this is one of those things where you if you're a White Sox fan, you hated to see Crochet be the one to go, but this is one of those sort of long-term deals. A couple years down the road, it'll make sense.
Yeah, it really was a win-win for both teams, although I am shocked they didn't get a top 3 out of it with the season Crochet was having. And then the Brewers sending Devin Williams to the Yankees for Nestor Cortez and an infield prospect, Caleb Durbin, as well as some cash from the Yankees. Maybe it's just me. I feel like the Yankees absolutely fleeced the Brewers on this one. I got to watch Nestor Cortez pitch in New York last year. The last time he pitched well before he had a 20-plus day hiatus before being thrown in cold to face Freddie Freeman, which we also saw how that went. So I knew Devin Williams was going to get traded most likely. I expected the haul to be better than Nestor Cortez and an infield prospect. What the hell are the Brewers doing?
I don't know, but look, I'm not gonna knock the Brewers because the Cubs took their manager and they still freaking won the division. So I wouldn't necessarily count the Brewers out. There certainly is a Brewers way developing here where they can just win anyway, regardless of what you do to them. So
I'll skip all the Cubs trades. I'll lump them in at the end. The Yankees sent Jose Trevino to the Reds for Fernando Cruz and Alex Jackson. The Guardians traded Naylor to the Diamondbacks. The other bigger trade, at least NL East wise, the Marlins sent Jesus Luzardo to the Phillies for Starling Capaba and outfielder Emarian Boyd. I mean, Luzardo was a workhorse for the Marlins last year. That was a great trade for the Phillies, giving up relatively nothing to get a guy that can sit down in the middle of the bottom third of the rotation and just eat innings for them. I really like that trade for the Phillies.
Right.
Much it pains me to admit it. Let's see. The Dodgers sent Gavin Lux to the Reds for an outfield prospect. And all right, so let's hit the Cubs trades. It's time. So first, you guys got outfielder Kyle Tucker. Before obvious shirts just went nuts with the merchandise after the trade went down. That one cost you Isaac Paredes, Hayden Wisniewski, and prospect Cam Smith, who was a third base prospect. And then your next trade was to send Belly over to the Yankees for Cody Poteet. And then you had the trade of Ryan Presley to the Cubbies for where was it? Juan Bello, a single A, barely broken in pitcher. So it took Jed a little while to get going. But I think the trades were all I think they were good in your favor. I was really surprised that getting Kyle Tucker from your new AAA team down in Houston, known as the Astros. I was surprised that was all you had to give up for Tucker. I thought they were going to hold out for a little more, but I like the trades.
What I'd say about Kyle Tucker is that, I think it was either going to be Cam Smith or Matt Shaw, and there was no way they were going to trade their number one pick from last year.
No, definitely
for this. The fact that they traded for Isaac Paredes kind of makes this, this Bregman stuff kind of weird because you're just not sure how this is going to go. To only have Paredes for a few months and to lose Christopher Morel in the process kind of sucked. But, to use that to get Tucker is not a bad thing.
Good turn and burn.
Yeah, and I think I'll miss Wes Nasty, but I get it. It's part of the thing, and like you said, I think they were trying initially. The Astros were trying to get more, but it was like, look, you're not going to get Shaw and Smith. I wouldn't have been surprised if they had traded. Much as I don't want to do it and I don't want to manifest this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had traded Nico at some point to somebody.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping Nico might want to come down to the Braves, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so. The other thing is I think the Bellinger deal made sense. I'm just surprised it took so long to happen.
Yeah.
And to get a Cody Poteet out of that, I felt like maybe they could have gotten a little bit more. But especially because you're sending, cash along with it.
Yeah.
Now I gotta say that the Cubs are stocking up the Cody cash. They got some money from the Astros to pay for Presley, who we'll touch on in a second. But I mean, I hope they start spending this money.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't just pull all that money in and then not do something with it. Now, Jed might hold on to a chunk of it to use at the deadline. That would make sense. Because the market for players, there's really not a ton that's out there that you guys need.
Well, I would say this. I think the outfield is not somewhere where we need help. Other than getting rid of, other than picking up Tucker, and that's basically, that's an upgrade in the outfield when you get rid of Belly, because now PCA is your everyday center fielder.
Oh yeah,
Ian Happ is your everyday left fielder. And Seiya has shown a diminished capacity in the field over the last year or so. Particularly last season was pretty brutal for him defensively. So
he'll be DH'd.
I think it sounds like he's accepting the fact that he's going to be a DH for a lot of the year, which initially it didn't sound like he was too thrilled about. But I think they have so much on the in AAA for outfielders. They've got Owen Casey, they've got Canario, they've got there's another one that's slipping my mind at the moment, but they have so much outfield depth down in AAA, and so it's time for some of those guys to get a shot.
Yeah.
Barring something happening between now and spring training in a few weeks, it looks to me as if Matt Shaw is going to be your everyday third baseman, and for his second year in the league, that's or his second year with your club, that's pretty exciting to see that. So, overall, I think they've gotten better. I think I would have loved to have seen them pick up, some of these bullpen pieces, and they may still, with what's still out there. I feel like they're a bullpen piece and maybe a long reliever away from having everything covered that they need to have covered.
Yeah, agreed. So what's left out there? Because most of the big pieces are gone. There are a few left. Starting pitching, you still have Flaherty, Gibson, Pivetta. So Clayton Kershaw, but let's be real, he's going to re-sign with the Dodgers. He's not going anywhere else. And Max Scherzer's still out there. He'd probably still be willing to sign a 1-year deal. Relievers, you're down to Kirby Yates is gone. He went to the Dodgers, I believe.
Right.
But Carlos Estevez is still out there. Kenley Jansen's still out there. David Robin, or did you guys got Robinson? That's
No,
right.
we didn't get Robertson yet, but I think they're
No.
talking to him.
Like I said, I'd love to see Robertson back with the Cubs, traded to the Phillies at the deadline just to break Jason's heart one more time. It would just make me chuckle.
I don't wish that on my worst enemy, so I'm not going to wish that on Jason. So, I'm a big fan of what he was able to do, and maybe in a longer, in a setup role, he may be, a good extra piece.
There are no good catchers of note left. So if you don't have your catcher, you're SOL JWF, to quote George Carlin. First baseman, Pete Alonso is still available. And Steve Cohen, when he was giving an update at at the Amazing Day Fan Fest, he said, and I quote, "This has been an exhausting conversation and negotiations." And he said Soto's negotiation was tough. This is worse. A lot of it is we've made a significant offer. I don't like the structure that are presented back to us. I think it's highly asymmetric against us, and I feel strongly about it. He's not closing the door to Pete Alonso coming back, but I mean the Mets are basically signed up. They're running out of roster space and money to bring Pete Alonso back at what he wants. First of all, I think Alonso and Boris should have taken the offer the Mets gave him what last year, 2 years ago, because I don't think he's going to see close to that. What was it, like 765 or something like that, or
something like that? Yeah,
he's not going to see close to that. He really fell off the table last year offensively, and
yeah. If I wasn't so confident in Michael Bush, I would tell Jed to put some money in that direction, because that would just solidify the infield a little bit. But
7-year, 158. That's what he turned down 2 years ago when Billy Epler was still the GM. I don't think he sees that anymore. He can still hit home runs, but he struck out a ton last year. His speed, which wasn't great to start with, is basically gone. He's a below average at best first baseman defensively. I mean, does he play almost every game? Absolutely. I mean, he if he's not hurt, he'll be out there playing, but I don't really know that he fits anywhere as well as he does in New York, maybe with Chicago, but the number of open spots are they're basically gone. Christian Walker resigned, Paul Goldschmidt signed. So there's the openings aren't really there. And I think once again, Scott Boras, in trying to push, overplayed his hand, and it's going to cost his client money.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, Boris is Boris. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows what he does. So, I mean, Alonso, at some point, these players, and I think you saw some of this with, what's his name, signed with the Diamondbacks last year, Montgomery. You saw this where they were like, shit, if I had been in spring training the whole time, I might have been in a much better start to the year. So I think you're starting to see some of the players kind of go, look, like, yeah, sure, I want my money, but I need to perform. And if I'm not going to be able to perform because you hold me out of training camp, then what good am I?
Yeah. New York Post recently reported that the latest offer from the Mets to Alonso was 3 years, 70.
Take it. You gotta take that.
He's not going to get better than that, and it
No,
might
and
even still
he'll
go down farther.
he'll be a glorified DH in a couple of years anyway.
Yeah, I don't get it.
And I think the part of the problem with the Mets, as I see it, they've got a couple of pieces that I think they're just not really sure what they have.
Yeah,
If they felt confident in Brett Beatty, they would just move on from Alonso.
mm-hmm.
Because Vientos can clearly play both positions and clearly has a much better bat.
Yes.
But because I think I know the fans aren't sold on him, but I don't think the team is sold on what Beatty can contribute, and because of that, you're relying on Vientos to play third and first base as a whole. So honestly, to me, it would make a lot of sense if the Mets went after a third baseman and then kept Vientos.
Yeah, like maybe Alex Bregman would make a lot of sense for the Mets.
Yeah, either that or you know, Moncada in a change of atmosphere, or you know, somebody like that.
Although no, I think Berti just signed recently too.
Yeah, Birdie signed with the Cubs.
No, that's right. Up the middle, there's nothing big left. You got Nicky Lopez with Merrifield, Polanco, Hae-Sung Kim, Jose Iglesias. So like middle infield, you're looking at bench guys at this point. I know, Jason earlier was earlier in the offseason was talking about potentially seeing the Phillies sign Bregman and then turn and trade away Bohm somewhere else. But same issue Alonso's facing now. I'm not sure too many teams have a big need at third base, and they wouldn't trade him to the Mets anyway because the Phillies don't trade big players in division. They never have. So I don't see that the pickup of Bregman and then a trade of Bohm happening anytime soon for the Phillies. And they're set at DH with Schwarber because God knows you don't want to put Schwarber back out in left field again. So, Bregman, yeah, it really might end up being the Astros at this point, re-signing Bregman, but we'll see there too. That one's been curious. I really thought Bregman would have I really thought he would have been snatched up by now.
Yeah, I mean, of some of these guys that we've been talking about, I feel like at first base you're gonna have Alonso will end up somewhere. Turner will have a minor league deal somewhere. Gallo, who the hell knows? I'm surprised that Rizzo hasn't gone somewhere as a DH or a first base piece so far. He's also just a great locker room guy, and I think some teams are starting to look for some of that now.
Yeah, let's keep in mind too. Bregman is also represented by Scott Boras, so who knows when that signing's going to finish ridiculously. And then in the outfield, the big bats are gone. You still have guys like Kenya, Austin Hayes, Alex Verdugo, Harrison Bader, Jason Hayward's still out there, but the big bats are gone out there too. Again, at this point, if you're still looking for starters in free agency, you're looking at either Alonso or Bregman, and that's really by and large about it for the position players. And the aces are off the board too. I mean, you're looking at 3, 4, 5 guys that are left for the starters. So we'll see how that goes for the rest of them. Did you have any thoughts on any of the guys that are left?
I mean, we've kind of sprinkled in some thoughts as we've gone along. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to, the Cubs picking up somebody like a Kyle Gibson to sort of bolster things. From a bullpen standpoint, I like I said, I'm not opposed. I feel like Estevez should have been gone by now, but the fact that he isn't is surprising to me. I think Jansen had a bit of a down year last year, and the Red Sox in general had a bad year. So I think that certainly has impacted him quite a bit.
Yeah.
A lot of these relievers I thought would all be gone or somewhere. in the process, and the fact that some of them are still available kind of surprises me.
Yeah.
I,
Only a
I
couple
think
weeks until pitchers and catchers.
right, and I think with the Cubs and I guess it's the Dodgers probably. I forget who they're playing in Tokyo. That those guys start a week from Sunday
Yeah.
because of that series. So
Dumb
you
series.
know it's there's a lot of that going on. So I'm surprised that some of these guys aren't off the board yet, but
We'll see.
all the outfielders would be good depth additions for sure.
All righty. So I did find something for bringing out the good. Did you have anything besides Jake Berger? Or do you want me to read that one off?
No, go ahead.
All right. So for bringing out the good, Jake Berger signed with the Rangers. He's going to wear number 21 this season because of his daughter who was born with Down syndrome. Clinical name for Down syndrome is trisomy 21. It's a condition in which a person's born with an extra chromosome, and it causes mild to moderate cognitive disability, developmental delays, and physical challenges. Berger said, "This is the first time I can pick a number that's not just close to my heart, but close to a lot of people's hearts. For me, it's trying to spread awareness and try to get the word out about Down syndrome and how people can get support. I'm just really proud of this number and really excited to wear this and represent my daughter, but also so many people out there." He's working on establishing a foundation to help other families impacted by Down syndrome. And also, I don't know if you remember this from your days with Jock Peterson, but his older brother, Champ, who Jock brings around the ballpark all the time, also has Down syndrome. And Berger said at the signing he hadn't met with Jock and Champ yet, but he was really excited to meet the two of them. That's one of those fortuitous pairings that just doesn't always happen, and you love to see it when it does. That's really awesome. I really hope Berger has a good year.
Yeah, I think he's an excellent ball player. He's just seems like a really good dude too. And you like to see some of those guys who are just really good dudes have some success.
Yeah, sign him up. Sign him up for some awards. There's a certain award that should have a lifetime patch that should go to him, in my humble opinion. And then the Paul Skeens card was found. An 11-year-old in the Los Angeles area found the one-of-a-kind Topps Paul Skeens 1/1 debut patch card. He declined the offer from the Pirates, which included 30 years of season tickets behind home plate, the opportunity to play a softball game at PNC, as well as a meet and greet with Skeens, autographed paraphernalia. I know it was including baseballs, probably jerseys too, maybe bats. And Skeens' girlfriend, Livy Dune, also offered the opportunity to watch a game in her luxury suite at the ballpark during the start, too. The Pirates did say that while they were, quote, bummed that their offer was rebuffed, they still did offer to have the fan out at a game during the 2025 season. Fanatics Collect's going to handle the auctioning of the card, and the kid has said he's going to donate the entire proceeds of that sale to fire relief funds in the Los Angeles area. Holy crap. I don't know that I would have I straight up no, I wouldn't have thought of that as a thing if it was me that picked that card. That kid is a better human than I am.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is fantastic stuff, obviously. And the fact that Fanatics is handling it just tells you it's going to be overpriced because everything that Fanatics sells is overpriced. But great on this kid to do that. And to be able to resist, both Mr. Livy Dunn and Livy Dunn herself. Smart kid.
Yeah, he is. Last thing for tonight. This is down on the farm from Jason. MLB released the top 100 prospects for 2025. The top 5 from the Dodgers: number 1, Roki Sasaki, no surprise there. Number 2, the Red Sox outfielder Roman Anthony. Number 3, Walker Jenkins of the Twins, another outfielder. Number 4, Dylan Cruz, an outfielder from the Nationals. And number 5, Jackson Jobe, right-handed pitcher from Detroit. Looking at our team's top prospect for the Phils, Andrew Painter, number 8 overall. For the Cubs, Matt Shaw, the infielder, number 19 overall. For the Braves, catcher Drake Baldwin, number 63 overall, which I would not be surprised to see Baldwin up at some time if Chadwick Trump struggles in the backup catcher role behind Murphy. So that's the top 5, and I was trying to pull up the top 30, but MLB's not updating that right now, probably because they just released the top 100, so they're not going to have that available till at least tomorrow. So
probably, yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. We are back for season 5. As soon as we hammer out the schedule for how we want to do the division previews, we will get that posted up on Facebook, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I'm excited to be back for season 5. Really interested to see what everybody's thoughts are as we start getting into these division previews, because it's going to be some very interesting ones this year, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. We'll see how the season starts and goes, and I'm just glad that we can start talking about real possibilities here with baseball as opposed to hypotheticals.
And let's be real, the way the NFL season's rounding out, I need something else to think about that's not football. I'm happily done with football for this year. All right. Audio recordings are available on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, anywhere you find podcasts. We're live on YouTube and Facebook. Merchandise is at redbubble.com. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer. And we are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast, LLC, and sponsored by Baron Barbershop over in Mannheim. Guys, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. And welcome to season 5.